this thing is trying to be the new replacement to the iPhone. And I mean, everyone's trying to do this. Like, what's going to come next for the smartphone? This is kind of like the broad topic that I want to talk about today. But like this pen thing, and I think people, like anybody watching this, is probably kind of familiar with it. But it's this little pin that you stick to your shirt or your jacket.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like a glorified Siri in that you talk to it, like, hey, what are some restaurants nearby? And it talks to you back.
Right.
And like it's really intelligent and it like learns from you and this sort of thing becomes like a real companion. It also projects onto your hand and like you can move your hand in certain ways and it will like manipulate, oh, play the next song or whatever by clicking your fingers or this sort of thing. Kind of
Yeah.
cool, kind of cool. But my take is that I think this is like the last possible thing that's ever going to be a phone replacement. It literally is a step back.
Yeah.
And the reason for this is that the cell phone, the smartphone, it's this like portal device that transports you into other worlds. It makes
Right.
it so that like you can sit there and like read a novel. Like you can read, anything. Whether it's like scrolling through social media or watching a movie, like it's this portal to a million different worlds. Whereas, like, if it's just an auditory thing that's just talking to you, it's a portal to nothing. It's just like a little assistant that kind of helps you out. But like, if you're sitting at the dentist's office or like on a train or just in your living room and you have time to kill, the human brain wants to be transported. And this is not technology. This is the human brain for like forever. We've always played games with each other or read things or like,
Mm-hmm.
made up games.
Mm-hmm.
That's the that's what the smartphone facilitates, and this does not facilitate any of that. So whatever is going to come next that's actually going to replace the smartphone, it's going to have to be able to do all of those things and then maybe take out some like the doom scrolling elements or the elements that make us depressed, possibly, right? If it's a step in the
Yeah.
good direction. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the AI pen, and did you have a chance to like look into it?
I did, and it's funny because for me, like the first thing that makes the concept feel kind of insane is that I saw a bunch of articles about it, and immediately I thought PIN as in like your personal identification number, your PIN for your ATM.
Oh yeah.
Because when's the last time you ever heard of a fucking PIN? You know what I mean? I'm like, guys, like I literally didn't click on any article about it because they were like, and I was like, I just kind of like had like I'm like, I don't know, a pin number and AI. I'm like, I don't know, it doesn't. But then you sent me the article and it's like a pin you wear on you, and I'm like, damn, dude. And then like the two people that are selling it in the video where I'm like, did they come up with this? Because they both look kind of like out of touch and like weird. Like they just like weird out of touch, like but like older Gen Xers, maybe
Yeah.
boomers, or like just older Gen Xers or something. And I'm like, yeah, the like first of all, it doesn't work that good. Like Siri doesn't work that good. Like nothing has been able to even make me feel like it's 2015. Where it's like where I'm like, hey, what's the nearest restaurant? And it's like, oh shit, here's a couple of restaurants. Like my partner does that all the time. She'll be like, "Oh, say, hey Siri." So what's I'm like, "Stop, just stop," because we're gonna do that. Because like I've been doing this for fucking almost a decade, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you it's gonna be the same shit it was 8 years ago, where it's like, "Oh, I found some tire shops near you," or like, I don't know what an elephant does in its spare time, and you're like, man. So crazy to do it as a pin because it's not, what is it, 1935, you know what I mean, like a brooch, might as well have called it like a brooch, you know what I mean, like the AI brooch. And then two, Siri doesn't work that good, and three, if we've learned anything from like the smart devices that have come out over the last 10 years, it's that people don't want to look stupid, and
Mhm.
like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and
And it
also
looks
people,
dumb.
it looks crazy. Okay, so can I tell you? I was thinking about this last night. I I see the I see the future. I see it. Here's what I think is going to happen. These people are going to be laughed at. Their product is going to fail miserably. But whatever, it's cool because I guess it's making some noise for like an AI, ecosystem type product, whatever. But what I think is going to happen is I already see a lot of guys wearing the cranial, like suboral headphones. You know what I'm talking about? Like where it just vibrates the skull. And they're not that expensive and they're getting
Hmm.
cheaper every day. So they literally go on your kind of temple region and then they transmit sound by just vibrating your skull a little bit,
Whoa.
and your ears pick up the vibrations in your skull as sound waves. I've got I mean, look, okay, I don't want to digress. I've thought about all this stuff a lot. So you've got the subaural earphones. Those are going to migrate into probably at some point like little contact patches, or some kind of like very discreet skin colored suction cup or something like that, or even like a zit patch. Probably it's going to look like within the next like 5 to 10 years, like a Bluetooth version of that, right? So you're going to start getting your I think you're going to start getting your audio mostly through your kind of cranium. And what that allows you to do, and soldiers have been doing this forever, is you can talk at like less than zero volume. You can just basically use your throat to say things, and it'll pick, and you can have that picked up, amplified, and transmitted out. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to have in the next 10 years, God, please let this be happening in the next 10 years, like little subcranial, little or sub, whatever the fuck they're called, little cranial auditory devices, and it's going to be really subtle. Because I think the thing that people are missing is that it needs to feel so streamlined that it doesn't feel invasive to our
Hmm.
sense of autonomy over the body, which is why I don't think that like implants are gonna, like, people are like, oh, we're gonna be like cyborgs. I'm like, I don't think so. I think we're gonna go through kind of a long period where we have a bunch of disposables, because technology is going to get so good that we're going to have like contact lenses and little like cranial audio stickers. And then between that, nobody would ever know that you're doing anything, recording, talking to somebody, someone's talking to you, and that way you can be real discreet about whatever it is you're trying to do. People don't look at you and think you look weird. You don't have to wear
So let me,
glasses.
yeah, let me play this out a little bit because I like this
Hmm.
a lot. What do you think is going to be in this world? Let's say that this is a direction that we go down.
Hmm.
What do you think is going to be is there still going to be a screen that people interface with at all so that you can read the New York Times as you're walking down the street or sitting in the back of your driverless car, sort of thing?
I don't think so. I think we've got like a pretty recent fascination with screens that I don't think is going to be like the whole screen in the pocket thing. I think everything's going to become more compartmentalized and more specific. Like I don't think we're going to have a device that does all of the things that a phone does for that long. Like
So
I think most of that stuff is going to migrate into the like non-visual space, and then the contact lenses I'm sure will be able to be augmented reality like completely. It shouldn't be that long before that's
yeah,
real.
it's interesting. I think I do broadly agree with that. I was having a little discussion in the notes on my Substack piece with somebody who was commenting on this about it seems like there's something about the phone and about the digital world that it seems like it is kind of like clunky, and we probably are going to all go back
Yeah.
to more of like an analog reality.
Yeah.
And I mean, I
Partially.
part of my comment on this was that there's like some word or something like this that every human has like an evolutionary desire to return to the sea, and so this is
Mm.
partly like why we all live on the coast. And I think that we all, even if we did like hundreds of years from now all have some we all lived in VR or whatever, we would have some evolutionary drive to return to reality, to return to base reality and just like pure analog existence. I think that that's like, it is obviously like kind of hardwired into us, and I don't think there's much debate about that. So I
I
mean,
also,
I kind of think
yeah,
that we are going to have like less and less devices and gadgets, but I
me
do
too.
think, oh my God, some things that the cell phone that it does, it is so amazing and just so convenient. And I do really think that there is something about the human brain needs to be able to uh, be transported into other worlds and do this through
Mm-hmm.
books and music
Mm-hmm.
and movies and on and on. So we need to be able to be transported somehow. And
Yeah.
I think that you're probably right with something like a patch like this. And then maybe it will be something like, maybe it's a watch that it is able to like give some sort of a hologram experience or something like that. Probably
Maybe,
not
yeah.
that, but or like something like a contact lens. I could see like a little patch and then a contact lens and then that's it.
Yeah.
No other devices. That's
I think
it.
that's going to become like what the cell phone is now, where it becomes like hyper iterated over like 2 or 3 generations of people, or like 2 generations. Because like the phone, I always think about this with innovation with humans. It's like we're really good at improving stuff, and we're like, oh, we're like so at inventing brand new stuff, but we're insanely good at taking like a durable concept and iterating it into its final form or into
Yeah.
oblivion. Like the phone, it is crazy when you think about now, like why would you still have a phone? Like why would it do all of those things? We just don't we don't think about it. We just keep innovating and innovating and innovating, and I'm like, okay, but it's time to get all of that stuff that we've just crammed into the phone because somebody did it once, and start breaking it apart and putting it into its constituent parts in a way that I think like is more naturalistic. And to your point, I think that the future, the reason that a lot of sci-fi writers write about the future being like hybrid analog, and there's a lot of like retro futurism in sci-fi in general, is because that probably is what's going to happen to us. Like I think we will have still maybe newspapers or at some point, or like records, and things that are physical because they're imbued with a humanity that we like to surround, that most people will always like to have some element of, even if it's just like an object in a museum, where it's like, oh, that's the book that was bound by hand for me by like this person there and there. And we love narrative and we love stories and we love objects, and so it's like, I think there's always going to be a niche for that, but like we're coming from an era where that was the only thing into an era where it's starting to come into the only digital space. And I think we'll probably find some cool, vibey balance between the
I
two.
do really enjoy how we haven't talked about this at all, but I think our minds have kind of met on this a little bit. It's very interesting to me. So I wrote about two things recently that are totally tied into this.
Mm.
One was the Playboy Metamansion. So we can talk about that for a second. And then also I wrote about, do you remember Frank Andrick? Do you remember
Yeah,
that
yeah,
guy?
of course.
There was this
Sure.
guy in Sacramento who's like local famous for like he used to work in radio, and so he used to know a lot of like rock stars and stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also like a local poet. He died about a year ago.
Right.
But I remember like you'd walk into his apartment and it was a library that he like accidentally kind of put together with
Right.
like he had all these just crazy obsessions like the Templar Knights
Right.
and the Thelema thing, um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, like a lot of just like every esoteric thing under the planet. He thought that he was like related to the Templar Knights, like the last Templar Knight,
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of just like bizarre things. Plus he was a druggie and like a psychonaut, plus a poet. So
Right.
you'd step into his apartment and it was one of the most magical places, even though it was a total dump. Just because you knew, you would just like any little corner of the room, you could pick up any object, and it would be this like whoa otherworldly thing that
Mm-hmm.
would transport you into this other world.
Sure.
And they all kind of like all the objects kind of adhered in a weird way. You were in like a bizarre place. So I
Yeah.
mean, the article I wrote about was kind of like we should be collecting cool objects nowadays. We should be collecting rare books. It's so
People
easy to
are.
collect rare books and not even spend that much money on it, but like
Yeah.
have your own little curated space so that someday like people would come over and be like, "Whoa, what is this place?" And it's easy to do that these days in a way that it wasn't before.
Oh yeah.
And then like in my mind, I have this juxtaposed with this thing called the Playboy Metamansion. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. It's one of these like metaverse spaces where, and this is so dumb to me. You can once you're like in the metaverse world that is the Playboy Metamansion,
You get
it's like obviously a play on the Playboy Mansion, but like you can buy like a little flashlight, you can buy a little key, and like you're paying like real money to buy these
is it a
stupid tokens.
is it like an immersive VR experience where you pay to be around like a bunch of dissociated hot chicks?
It's not even that. I mean, maybe they're gonna take it in that direction, but like it's literally not even that. I mean, supposedly it's like to meet with like-minded, progressive, free-spirited people, blah 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 blah. I don't
Oh,
know.
no way.
But like the graphics of it are so just dumb, like baby dumb, you know? And
Progressive,
just like I can't.
free-spirited people. I love that they're selling it to people as if like we still have like a moral code and you're like
Right.
part of like some like, you're gonna go, we'll give you a place where you can be not. I just watched, like the most satanic porn I've ever seen like 5 minutes ago with zero shame, like your trot around like the Playboy mansion with like circa 2004 Brazzers chicks is like not it's not making me feel speakeasy vibes.
Okay, that's totally apart. That's hilarious. Also, like, can you personally wrap your mind around like dropping money to buy a little tokenized thing in the metaverse that is like a little key or a flashlight or like a car,
What
some
kind of
stupid,
niche
stupid,
pervert do you
stupid
have
thing.
to be? What kind of niche pervert do you have to be that you're still getting wet on like Playboy mansion shit, dude? Like
I really truly do think that there is going to be some form of a metaverse slash VR world. I do think that there's going to be something there, even if it is just like a niche thing. I think it's going to be there,
There will
and
be
maybe
many.
yeah.
There will be so many. It'll be like everything else. It's so funny to watch these tech companies pretend like they're like AC/DC or something and be like, "We are putting out the rock album of the year." And it's like 1985 and like everybody's going to listen to the new DC album. It's like you can put out the metaverse, but it's only going to be like 10 years before there's like 50 of them. There's like a metaverse specifically for like middle-aged black nurses. You know what I mean? It's like so hyper compartmentalized. There's like a metaverse for like, like overweight furry like I don't know, like account executives, like yeah, guys, like, I don't know. Dude, so check this out. Let me effortlessly segue us into our next topic because I don't want to get too far away from the thing that I felt was relevant, which is AI taking her jabs.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I
I want to
sent
talk
you this
about this
tweet.
because
Yeah.
so check this out. So we were just talking about collecting human objects.
Hmm.
And I've been reflecting on this a lot because in December, me and my partner are doing like a holiday market where for like 3 weekends we'll be selling our stuff. I make handmade earrings out of metal, and she makes really cool art out of a bunch of different mediums, and then we make stuff together. So part of what people I saw this to reference the tweet that you sent me, it was like list of jobs that will be obsolete in the next 6 to 24 months, or basically that you'll have to be worried about.
Yeah, I think it was like a Forbes article, and it had like yeah, long list, and just to highlight it a little bit, like 3D designers, logo designers, language tutors, content writers, photo editors, voice artists, translators, copywriters. And in my day job, I work with a lot of these people. I work with
Mm,
translators and
mm.
copywriters and stuff like that. So it hits home for me a little bit thinking about like people that I work with being like, and like contractors, like you guys, y'all may be out of a job like a
Yeah.
couple of months.
Yeah, I think for sure things like that are purely mechanical, where there's no sentimentality and there's no narrative structure around it, you're fucked. Like if it's a company that's looking for a logo, graphic designers, you're fucked. You
Yeah.
know, if it's I think I'm thinking about AI taking our jobs. I want to like split this into two places in my mind. I want to talk about it as like a professional person that's a tradesperson, and then I want to talk about it as an artist because those have kind of diverging, I think, implications. But as an artist, to kind of finish the through line from our last conversation, I think that the collection of human objects, the collecting of human made objects, is going to be a thing forever. It may become a more and more and more niche market. And when I think about these holiday markets and the type of schlock that like fucking like boomer moms will crank out and like actually sell, at places like this, no shade, boomer moms, your fucking precious moments figurines collections, will live on in our hearts. But I think that what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of hand wringing and a lot of pot banging about artists losing their jobs writ large, which is true. But for an artist that's truly just making art for people to buy and keep with them, it's going to get smaller and smaller, but it's going to be things that people actually fucking want to keep around. Like all we had for hundreds of years was tchotchkes. Like we've just been, everything we bought forever was some kind of fucking tchotchke, something that somebody made by hand with like varying levels of giving a fuck. And I think what's going to start happening is we're going to start collecting these objects, but they're going to be meaningful objects. They're going to be things they're going to, that's the fucking, that's my one painting that like a person painted. All this other stuff is AI generated based on my interests and like things that I like and with stylistic cues that I find fun and interesting. But that's like that right there, like, and they're going to have a story about it and it's going to be like a treasured object instead of just being a wash in like all of these kind of like half-baked handmade goods. I think it's going to be a smaller and more refined market for artists. Thoughts?
Yeah, I have a lot. I mean, that I think is definitely true. I think that also there is this thing called the creative spirit that's in many of us. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was this guy, and part of like he just like went into this spiel about how he has this urge to create. He can't help it. He has to just always be creating something. That's something that I have, and that like I know you have,
Me too,
and like
yeah.
a lot of our friends have that. And it was interesting hearing somebody
I'm
who I
afflicted
have
by
no
it.
association with. Yeah, me too. This guy who I have no association with, like saying the same things that you and I talk about quite often, and my other friends. That was just kind of interesting, and I think that that's pretty widespread. And the people who have that, they're not going to quit. And like at some level, I don't know, like whatever you make, it does find some sort of an audience. And so I think that like creative people are just
If
going to,
it's good. If
yeah,
it's good.
but I mean, like in terms of like the population of people who just like impulsively create, some of them rise to the top, right? Like there's always gonna be
True.
those ones in whatever in the world we're creating. But I do think it's useful to look back in history and think about like how quickly the last like 200 years have gone by in terms of like destroying old art forms and creating new ones. We've gone from like the death of opera, one of the, like the most glorious and like symphonies, glorious, profound,
Despised.
moving
It's
works of art.
despised now.
Now it's utterly despised and gone. Like it's just gone,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then we've gone from that to like Beeple making weird digital art sort of thing. This process is gonna keep going, man. It's gonna just keep going and keep going and keep going. The big question right now, and this goes back to that Forbes article, is how much of that is going to be an element of the economy. That I don't know. I mean, I'd have the hardest time trying to speculate about like
Smaller
at
and
what
smaller.
point. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's inevitably going to be smaller and smaller.
It's going to be
And
hyper specialized at some point to be a person that makes things, physical things for other people to keep.
yeah, that's actually exactly where I was going to go with this. Is that I think that like companies or organizations like where I work, we're not going to have all these third-party services that we hire contractors to do specific things for us. And a lot of like the Fiverr world is kind of like going to go away. But the Etsy world or like the Redbubble world,
That's
that's
sticking
not
around.
going away. That's sticking around.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think so. Because like at some level you get like companies don't care about this, but at some level, if you're a consumer of any kind, you don't care about like, oh, there's this cool thing that's colors on my wall that's kind of sort of a painting. You care about like, oh, this was made by so and so, right?
Yeah.
And that so and so
Yeah.
is the type of person I would want to hang out with.
You want to
And
have a
that type of
story.
yeah, you want a story and you want like an association with that person that you
Yeah.
think is cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's never going away. So
That's
as long
never
as
going
people
away.
are like have cool points to share with the world, that's gonna stick around.
But it will be like so much. I think it will be so much less because as I imagine, we'll wax and wane between minimalism and maximalism. But eventually, AI will get the the gist of how to execute either of those for us pretty faithfully and naturally, I think. And like it will be cool to be able to have like something that's artificially intelligent compose your environment for you, because I think that will actually be something that's like good for humans. Like we we've survived in environments that we've iterated on over and over and over again. The square house being one of my favorite strange, just like just like naturally aberrant behavior to create these like square boxes, and we've made them so nice for ourselves. But I almost guarantee, like, you notice like all of these AI models of like cool houses and shit, they're all like way they're all very steeped, and they're all natural looking, and there's all these natural elements to it, because I think we do want to exist in a way that's more formless and more natural, you know. And I think that AI, people think it's so funny to see like people, we came of age with technology being so square and so like so sleek and so designed, and that's just that's just the skin we put on it for a couple decades. Like, there is probably going to be waves and waves of the way that technological aesthetics are communicated, especially as we get into organic circuitry, especially as we get into AI having a more functional way of reproducing our environment that we live and think in. And I think it's going to pick up on the fact that we deeply, as we maybe want to return to the sea, we certainly need to return to the forest. That's something that is weirdly embedded in people. And like, if it's not the forest, it's whatever the analog of the forest is in that place, the desert, the dune. You know, we have this like, yeah, this desire to be integrated with the natural system, at least to feel like we are. And I think we'll, I don't think we'll be projecting holographic trees in our rooms. I think our AI is going to order plants for us, you know. But let me hop over onto the other side of it, which is industry, commerce, and business, is where I think like, you know, some of my very smart friends 10 years ago were kind of ringing the bell about AI and the death of creativity, and how it's going to sap human life of the desire to be creative, because it's going to be so much more effortlessly creative and have things that are, it's like, I don't think that is actually as much of a worry. What I do think is a crazy worry is that we have this wealth disparity. We have this land owning and property owning and business owning class, and then we've got this like serfdom of everyone else, where we are really mirroring feudalistic societies in a functional way at this point. And there's upward mobility, which there wasn't in those societies, but it's controlled. And you do have to be exceptionally sharp or lucky to find your way above the station that you're kind of put in. It's possible. However, people who have service jobs, let me just say, PSA, if you have a service job, like, you need to figure out a harder skill, because service jobs are gone. 10 years from now, nobody's going to want to fucking have the ultra strained social interaction of buying a thing from a person. It was ill-fated to begin with. We all hate the fucking 5-minute conversation with the grocery store checker and the bagger and the feigned politeness. And like, as soon as we can dispense with that, we're going to. So for like the 20% of people that just stand there and sell something to other people, like, figure out a different way to make a living tomorrow, because your job's going to be gone and nobody's going to help you. You might get some UBI or something, but you got to get started learning a trade skill. So that's my big headline for today. Learn a trade skill. Title of the episode: learn a trade skill, because AI is stealing your job. And like, you know, as a tradesperson, I shouldn't say that, I guess, because the more tradespeople there are, the less work there is for me, I guess. But I could talk about this for another 15 minutes. Why don't I kick it to you real quick, because I all of my thoughts are fully composed on this. What do you got? What do you got for me?
I have a lot of thoughts. I'm not even too sure where to jump in there, because I have I could spring off a different points here, but like maybe I'll take the service jobs first and then have a little another moment here. So I'll give you my roadmap where I'm going. So I think that you're kind of right about service jobs. I think that, I mean, like Phil's coffee, I do not like Phil's coffee. I think it's kind of garbage and kind of gross and overpriced, like a lot of
That's
coffees. Yeah, it's all right. And I don't like how they don't do espresso. It's like a Bay Area coffee joint. They have one in Sacramento. But dude, I go there for two reasons. In Sacramento, I go there
But people are so
because
nice.
they have an app, so you don't have to talk
Oh,
to
okay.
you order the coffee in your app and you just go pick it up, and then like
True.
the environment is really beautiful. It's this beautiful old repurposed brick building, and they have nice outdoor seating. So I go there for those two reasons. And yeah, I love not having to talk to baristas.
Mm-hmm.
Even though like a lot of the baristas, some of the coffee shops in my neighborhood, super nice and I actually do enjoy them, but just like the
Totally.
idea like of just bypassing that is
Oh,
actually, it's kind of worth it, right?
yeah, dude.
So, but I do think at some level, service jobs, and I haven't worked a job like this for 20 some years or whatever, so I don't have much to add necessarily, but I do think that there might be a world where service jobs can be like elevated so that there
Oh,
is still
yeah.
that human element, but
Fine
it's like,
dining server, never
yeah,
ever going away. People
no,
are
never going
always
away.
gonna want somebody to like fuck with, and also and then conversely, on the other side of the spectrum, there's always gonna be people that just want like a human to be kind to them because it feels good.
And I feel like someone could, I don't know, like get creative with what that purpose of the person at the barista job or other restaurant job, what they do or something. There's
They
something that
just
could be
walk around
fantastic.
and like subtly encourage you. They just go around the room and compliment people on things they notice.
Well, people like being around other people. Like that's just
Yeah,
true.
we love it, man.
Just haven't figured out how to make those interactions not awkward when we're so used to like working from
Well,
home and all these sorts of
and
things.
we nickel and dime our attention and our willpower every day to like how much wasted energy is there like for a lot of people, and just the micro anxiety of having to deal with other people throughout the day. It's like I think most of us would like to be able to take a deep breath, compose ourselves, and decide that we would want to interact with other people instead of just kind of being shuffled into these strained interactions, which also builds like this weird feedback loop where it's like I could totally see someone with low self-confidence, like every time they go to the grocery store, they're like, fuck, man, this is so awkward. This makes me feel so defeated. I feel like I don't know how to make polite conversation. And it's like, no, that's like such a hyper specific, it has like no relevance to real life. Like, yes, you can practice being polite and making conversation with the person at the checkout stand, but like, good Lord, most people don't need that much practice or even want it, man.
Hey, well, okay. Can I pitch you on my multi-billion-dollar business idea right now? And Devin, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's get some VC money and let's make this happen. Okay, because I do actually have a solve for this a little bit.
Okay, hit me,
I'm
please.
sharing this with the world, but this is
Mm,
this is my this is my idea, guys. No
it's a
one did
World
this.
Star exclusive.
But it's also maybe a terrible idea, but that's what makes it fun. So, okay, do you remember like what? This is gonna sound the most classist thing in the world, but like, what was the coolest thing ever in like world history of like a place to be situated in society? And I'm reading a book that like takes place in this. It's an old like J.P. Dunleavy book in Ireland, uh, but it is like England 1900s and belonging to one of those like men's clubs. Where like you
Sure.
have to, it's not that you're rich. Like rich is, sure you have to be rich. You have to be titled, motherfucker. You have to be like in a
Sure.
social registry to be at
Right.
one of these places.
Okay.
You're not just like an American millionaire. No, you're not getting in. You got to be on the social registry. Your dad had to be a fucking king of some like
Hell
weird
yeah.
European country. Okay,
Okay.
that was the coolest thing, right? To walk into one of these like more profound than St. Peter's Cathedral, to walk into one of these places and like belong here, right? And
All
then these
right.
your friends, there's your whole world kind of revolves around like being able to say that you go to such and such place.
All right.
Okay, so fast forward to now when no one cares about social registry or no one necessarily even cares if you have money.
True. Yeah.
Nowadays, people just kind of care if you
If
have a
you're hot.
little bit of social cachet, maybe if you're hot, but if you just like are fun to be around.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everyone has people in their life who they think are fun to be around. They're called
Mm-hmm.
your fucking friends. right? The thing is, no one other than like your local pub or the coffee shop, we're very bad in America of having third places. Like a ton
Oh,
of stuff has been written
fucking
about
A,
this.
man. Yeah.
So someone needs to pull like the we work of the social club. And this is me. This is my idea again, guys. Just to like let you know, this is my idea. The we work for the social club, where you just put in you and like your buddies, but also maybe there's like an app and like people like an algorithm shows you who's like
People that would be sympathetic to your
you would
energy.
absolutely get along, and you guys all love pickleball, or you guys like this,
Yeah.
or interests, but more than interest, also a personality type or whatever, a religion, whatever, like the algorithm.
You show up and it's like a room full of people that you fucking hate. And you're just like, oh shit, I am. And then you look down and you're wearing like a polo shirt and you're like, I do like pickleball. And you're like, you're like, you're like,
Okay, but let me.
fuck, are those IPAs in the corner?
Well, dude, so like I spend upwards of like or roundabouts like I calculated this recently, surprisingly, $200 a month on coffee or something like that. Just like going to a coffee shop once or twice a day, sometimes for
Yeah,
myself, sometimes for me and my wife.
yeah, of course.
Coffee is expensive. Imagine if I did $200 a month to instead go to like my third place. It's my own
Hmm.
private third place, and maybe it's like in a cool building downtown, like a repurposed brick type facility that we get a room in. Plus, maybe like it also opens up the doors to other like places you can't enter otherwise, unless you have this little thing. And maybe like there's even an element where like if you participate enough, like if you put out something like a magazine or some cultural artifact that's valuable, maybe there's something that like that gets you like tokens to get into some other place. There's a whole fucking world here, man, that could be opened up, I think, if
You're
like
blowing my
someone were able
mind.
to unlock this little thing of like the modern social club that has that, well, again, harkens back to that element of like belonging in the super, not everyone can get in. It's like super hard to get into like these certain little clubs. You know what I mean?
The club's
That
within the club.
Yeah, that's missing, and someone should make
Wow.
this.
You know, you're being, I thought you were being facetious, but that is truly like a multi-billion-dollar idea for the United States
I
in
think
in
so too.
particular.
I
You'd
think
run
so
into
too.
a lot of problems, but
Oh yeah,
they would all be
not easy.
they would all be able to be solved. That's actually a really killer idea because it could be super inclusive but also be exclusive in certain ways. The reason why third spaces don't exist in the United States is because homelessness is such an insane problem here. And like anybody that would open a
Our culture killed it too.
yeah, also that too. You know, okay, I know that you've only got 12 minutes, right? You got until 2?
Yeah.
Okay. I let me step up on my soapbox for 2 seconds. And I want to like finish I want to ride into the sunset in a blazing wheel of glory because I want to come back to this idea of trade jobs, service jobs, jobs that AI will take. And I want to very succinctly make the argument for trade jobs for all people, young people included. Now check this out.
I do love this already. Yeah.
And it's undeniable. I mean, I hope someone clips this and it makes it to every American because honestly, like this is the most important thing that you're going to hear today. Every house that was built in the last 200 years was built out of either wood or stone or brick or a combination of the three, maybe concrete's in there somewhere.
There was
But
a second when America was building with steel too, by the way. I watched like a
true.
video on this, which is very
Yes,
weird, but yeah.
that is very true. A lot of steel. But so same thing, right?
Yeah.
Each of those materials has its own trade, right? So even if tomorrow 3D printed, they come up with a machine that 3D prints houses with zero human input. Literally, you just set the machine on a site, it prints the entire house for you, sight unseen. You don't have to have a single person there until move-in day. Guess what? All of the 300 million or 400 million houses in the United States are already built out of all those materials. And one thing that I know about materials, I'm a carpenter, is they decay, they break, they wear, and they wear in. Now, I think we probably are 10 to 15 years away from seeing a robot 3D print a house out of concrete, you know, floor to ceiling. But we've got to be 20, 30, 40 years away from a humanoid robot that has the precision and skill to execute trade work. Maybe it's possible. I mean, things are moving quick. Things are moving really fast.
The Tesla bot could get interesting.
The Tesla bot, or whatever it is, but we've created such an enormous industry around just repairing people's houses because they're constantly failing. Not to mention the fact that until the day where every house is 3D printed, there's still going to be people building houses out of stone, metal, brick, and wood. And all of that ecosystem is full of older people right now. It's so many boomers that are carpenters and Gen Xers and millennials my age, less, and Zoomers much less. And what's going to happen is that market is not going to shrink over the next 20 to 30 years. The labor force is going to shrink dramatically. My job is going to go from being one of the most highly paid jobs in like non like, Jesus, I don't even know, like not a doctor or a lawyer. Like I get paid not as much as a doctor or a lawyer now, but not too far away, to be completely honest. In 20 or 30 years, if things go the way that they're going, I'm going to be getting paid like $200, $300 an hour to go like fix someone's countertop, because there's going to be so few people that can do those jobs. And there's going to be so many houses that need to be repaired. So if you're a young person listening to this right now and you're an artist, especially if you're an artist, let me tell you, plumbing and carpentry and stonemasonry, all these things are artistically gratifying. They're fun to do. You walk away from your job at the end of the day and you look at something that you're proud of having built. You get a little bit of an artistic buzz and high off of it. And if you get good enough at it, it can be as viable as an art form as classical painting, truly. And it's super high paid. I mean, you're a starting carpenter anywhere in the United States, even in a really impoverished, depressed area, is like $18 to $22 an hour. In the Bay Area, you're looking at people charging anywhere between $100 and $250 an hour for certain types of carpentry. So, and it's like that with every other trade. So, AI is going to take almost every job that involves calculation. And almost every job that doesn't involve a physical thing, all of that's gone. It's all going to go in the next 10 years. But anything that involves actually making a thing, changing the physical shape of a thing, if you start doing it now, you're buying yourself at least a generation of work that is not going to be taken away from you by a machine. Now, it might eventually be, and hopefully by then we have a different economy. But final thought, sorry, I know I'm gonna eat up all of the airtime at the end here. Final thought is that this is where I'm afraid, is that you've got all these young people that are in service jobs. You've got all of these older people that are aging out, and you've got machines that are going to start taking a lot of people's jobs that have really developed skill sets. What's going to happen to all these people when those jobs go away? Well, we don't have a great social safety net. We don't have corporations that are in any way morally or socially obligated to care for people. And what I really do worry about is that as all these people lose their jobs, the wealth gap is going to accelerate more and more. We're going to see people at the tops of companies harvesting bigger and bigger profits because labor has always been the most expensive part of running any business. And we're going to really see like a weird, like altered carbon scenario where you've got ultra fabulously, insanely rich people living these extravagant lives where their medical, life extension stuff is probably on a completely different level. And then people probably living like 1995 existence for the next 20 years. I'm worried about that. I think that like the United States is going to have to adopt some kind of progressive tax or socialistic taxation structure in order to make sure that we don't literally just have a French Revolution.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at some other societies like in Asia where you just see these stats about like young people that have no jobs and didn't make it into college, and so there is no pipeline for them for any future whatsoever. So they just like, now there's a name for these people in Japan that just like live at home and they have totally just like checked out. And I don't want that to ever happen in America or anywhere for that matter. Like something has to be done about that phenomenon. And I think that you're right. I think that part of my prediction in this regard is that I do think that uh, any sort of like a skilled labor type job, it's going to start becoming more like it's going to have like words associated with it like artisanal and bespoke and stuff like this. And like as soon
Totally.
as like the language turns a little bit around some of these jobs, all of a sudden they're going to go from being like low to mid to high status.
Yeah.
And once it becomes associated not with like guys and like with sweaty backs and like baggy jeans that are muddy, but like dudes who are quote unquote artists. I think that like that just like perspective shift will actually make it so that a lot of these jobs like carpentry and the ones that you mentioned there will become more like high status jobs. And yeah, it is kind of interesting how I I think that this is something that a lot of like sci-fi books and movies did just kind of like miss, perhaps,
Mhm.
because I don't think that that's reflected too much in the sci-fi world. But I also do think that I mean you dropped Altered Carbon there. I I think that that prediction that sci-fi makes that like there's a couple rich people at the top and
Yeah.
everyone else. I think okay, that take the contrary view here. That's overblown in sci-fi, and
Mm.
it's too easy for sci-fi writers, myself being kind of one of them. Too easy to do that, and just because it's so easy to envision and to write about, I don't think it's
Yeah.
gonna happen. I think that
Jeff
reality is
Bezos is
way
that. Like
no, no, but
Elon
like
Musk like is like the villain from Altered, like he is functionally that rich.
oh well, I mean that's what, but he doesn't like literally live in the clouds with a completely different existence from everybody else. Like it's he kind of like lives semi the same as I don't
That's
know,
true.
it's semi
Somewhat.
equivalent at some level. Um, but yeah, I think that like I think that that's going to be overblown. I think that there's going to be more like messiness everywhere
I
at
hope
every
so.
level. Yeah. One like little last note here that I think about a lot, and I want to write about this actually, so I'll mention it here just to be in my mental space to come back to. Uh, who do you think is cooler, Jeff Bezos with like all of his properties around the US, or Bill Gates for this matter, like owning a ton of property, or that hot second of Elon Musk where he sold all of his houses and was living at a friend's house, but was like so functionally like tied to nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in those that two worlds, like what do you think is cooler? Like to because there's that book that I just recently read, You Will Own Nothing and Like It, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's kind of cooler to own nothing at some level rather than like slaving away just to buy a little lot of land in a state that you don't want to be in anyway, but now you're tied there for the rest of your life. I don't know. There's
Yeah.
something about like just if we're talking like billionaires in the dream life, owning nothing is kind of rad. I guess it sucks if you're poor, but everything sucks if you're poor. But like I don't know, the dream of owning nothing is kind of rad to me at some level.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's just functionally different in each economic strata. If you're poor, you own stuff to hedge against like the landowning class like dominating your existence and squashing you out. If you're rich and you don't own anything, you're just cosplaying as a poor person for fun. It's
but
like,
but that would be that's what I'm talking about. Like we'd be cosplaying as poor people, but we'd all be rich in like the society that I'm envisioning here. But
I
anyway,
hope I
I
I
yeah
hope I
I gotta
always
wrap up.
cosplay as a poor person, Peter.
Me too. Me too. You know
Yeah.
what? It's rock and
I've
roll.
internalized it at this point.
Yeah, exactly. All right, man.
All right,
Hey,
buddy.
good talks. Till next time.
Good talks.